This album is like if an indie rock band got kidnapped from a suburban house party, they got stuck in the boot, they got driven to a remote cabin in the woods, they got stuck down in the basement, they got tied to a chair, they got made to watch snuff movies, and then they escaped just by gnawing through the rope. They ran out onto the streets in soiled underwear, all bloodied, and then they got picked up by a car and they got taken home and they were traumatized, and that's what this album is.
Give it a listen, folks. Welcome to Every Album Ever with Mike and Alex, the podcast where we listen to every single album in the world, one artist at a time. My name is Michael Mansour, and I'm joined, as always, by my happy, lovely, cool co-host, Alexander Volt. Say hello.
Also scattered brain, which leads me to being guilt-ridden.
We'll explain what he's talking about in a moment. Before that, we are joined, not for the first time, but for the first time with all of us, by our wonderful history guy and researcher and interview man, Tom Osman. Say hello.
Hello.
Very succinct. Tom will be leaving now. He's done with the episode.
I've done my part.
Yeah, this is Every Album Ever. We listen to every album in the world, except for these EAE singles episodes where we cover something brand new, something that sometimes hasn't come out yet, something that's about to come out. And today we're going to be discussing
the latest from Chat Pile entitled Cool World.
Yes.
Let's all just celebrate because this comes out in 3 days. If you're watching this the day this is dropping. And Tom specifically requested to be on this episode because I'm gonna start it out with a little bit of a claim. Tom and Alex both love this album.
Yes.
Yeah. Somehow this is a stronger outing than their debut. There's no sophomore slump here.
Well, their debut, was it God's Country? Wasn't their debut. They've been around a while.
It
maybe full length, I think.
It's considered.
Is it the first full length? Or the rest of EPs? So. Oh man, I'm fucking stupid.
And now it's on the internet that you're stupid.
Damn it! As if there wasn't.
So it's real.
Literally 270 episodes of that. Whatever. So God's Country was the first album, and we covered it. I mean, I put it on my list in 2021 of best album. I mean, it was my second favorite album of 2021. I thought it was unbelievably good, and this album, I will tell you both, I am changed. I there's not enough I can say about this. This, from the second it started, I was like gotten chills. I knew something big was about to hit me. Not only is this one of the best albums of the year, this is one of the best albums I've heard in years. There's not enough I can say. There's not nearly enough I can say about how fucking perfect, flawless. If you're not listening to this album, you're a fucking asshole. I mean, what else can you say? Holy shit.
It's a interesting bunch of things they've put in a blender, as the band has said. Since they got the debut album out of the way, they were feeling a little more comfortable. Now they're bringing in elements. Well, the sludge and noise were there, but it's like sludge, noise, math rock, 90s alternative, some goth rock influences, and it's all pretty seamless and feels new and exciting.
Tom, when you first heard this, I mean, because this is the first time you've joined us, and this is definitely not the last, but what made you so goddamn excited for this one?
So I have to admit that I actually got a little bit late to the party with Chat Pile for no good reason. I remember when God's Country came out and people were raving about it, and I don't know what happened. I think I listened to a tiny bit of it, and for some crazy reason I decided man, I'm not really into this. And then so I just didn't think about it for ages. And then I think when the announcement came that Cool World was going to come out, I thought, I should really check out God's Country. And I started listening to it and I instantly loved it. And I thought, what the hell was wrong with me that I thought that this was not my thing? This is exactly my thing. And
it's exactly Tom's thing, believe me.
Yeah, I totally love this. I would say, without jumping too far ahead, I kind of thought I was going to love this from like as soon as it fades in and the first beat drops. I was like, oh yes, this is going to be good. But I would say it's 2 minutes and 32 seconds into the first track. I don't know if you can like picture what it is that happens in that track, where it kind of like turns around. At that point, I just decided like, this is it. I'm in heaven.
That section, I've wrote it down as snuff film metalcore because it's like this big breakdown thing, but it's we've heard metalcore style breakdowns with that type of groovy ass beat. Not like this. Not like this.
Yeah, comparing it to a snuff film is apropos here. As my understanding of the album is, as they said, the American dream is dead and it's replaced with dread, and you get that lyrically, you get that through the violent, cacophonous sounds that they're putting out throughout the record. I wasn't instantly hooked the way you guys were, but once Frownland came on, I was like, okay, this is something different than their previous album.
Frownland, by the way, not a cover of Captain Beefheart, which I was like, before I pressed play, I was like, come on, are they covering fucking Frownland from Beefheart? It's not, but that made me think of. So when I say this album is perfect in every way, to quote the fucking Nathan Jones in Mad Max Fury Road, up to including the song titles, I feel are perfect. There's something that feels super disturbing about the song titles, and it's not like the one of the singles in the opening track, "I Am Dog Now," which I think is, I don't know why that's just striking a chord with me. Just "I Am Dog Now," and then "Funny Man," which is like, there's something that feels super unsettling about music this punishing and kind of wrong and messed up, with titles like "Tape." Like I really am thinking of a snuff film every time I'm listening to this whole thing.
Yeah, the 1-2 punch of camcorder and tape, there is, like, I'm sure this voyeuristic quality where it turns violent, and I'm just assuming based on the lyrics I could hear.
I can't remember if they specifically talked about Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. I have also, by the way, I've interviewed the band. I've interviewed 3/4 of the band in an interview for Ghost Cult magazine that hasn't come out yet. And I've subsequently forgotten most of what they said. So at certain points I may say, like, yeah, I spoke to them and they said something, but I can't quite remember. So they may have spoken about Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. Have either of you seen that movie?
Oh yeah.
I have not. I'm familiar with it, but I've never watched it.
Yeah, there's this amazing. So I think it's actually about a real serial killer. I can't remember the guy's name. Do you remember his?
It's a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit dramatized. It's a little bit exaggerated, but it's about a real guy. I'll look it up right now.
And it's got this scene in it that is really, really well done, where you see a family being attacked, and so you're watching this scene of abuse, and it's very harrowing. And then you realize about 3 minutes in, as the camera moves back, that you're actually watching Henry and his friend watching the attack on video. And so, like, you have been voyeuristically watching this, and now you're with them. It's a very clever little technique they use. So I just have a feeling that camcorder and tape might be somehow connected to that. I can't remember if I brought it up with them or if they mentioned it, but as you say, Alex, there's some kind of a comment on voyeurism going on there, I'd say.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they're fans of the Robin Williams film 1 Hour Photo, for those who've seen that, because that was very similar, where it was disturbing, and the friendly, back in the day when people would get film developed, your friendly neighborhood photo developer guy actually has this dark, seedy side to him. So that feels like a theme running throughout the album too.
The guy was based on was Henry Lee Lucas. Yeah, that movie, man, that's a good one. Of course, like many movies, I ended up discovering and watching that because of Fantomos's the director's cut, is that what it's called? Director's cut, the final cut.
I believe so.
Yeah, they did a cover of the theme for that one, and I ended up watching most of those movies that they did covers of, but that one was like, man, I don't want to watch that again. Like it's a horror movie, but it's like, oh, this is real. This is like real horror. This is human horror. This is fucked up.
It's exhausting.
But back to this album, which I find weirdly and strangely emotionally fulfilling. Like, because when I hear something that's this realized and this brilliant, with the writing, the choices, the presentation, just every single thing is so at the top of its game. I get like emotional. Like this is why I'm obsessed with art. This is a life-changing. I would consider this like a life-changing album. Like it's, man, this year is really good for me. I mean, this is album of the year is going to be so hard for me to decide at the end. I mean, I'm already fucking dreading it, but every single song is so, I mean, everything, there's not one dip. The pacing is flawless.
I think there's one dip.
What's the dip, Thomas?
We'll get to it.
Okay.
I got to say, I don't think there's a bad song. I don't actually think, this is going to be a bold statement, I don't think they have it in them to make a song that I won't like, because I love their sound so much. I love what they do just with the bass and the drums. And they do have so much creativity and interest with what they do with the guitar lines. I love the way that Ray Gun a lot of the time has this very dreary delivery. So I think Alex brought up the like 90s alternative rock aspect. And when I talked to them, they did say, one of the things that people quite often miss is they don't get how much we're influenced by indie rock. And I think that you can hear that through. I also thought like there's kind of like post-punk and kind of new wave in some of the tracks. But the fact that Ray Gun sings in this really dreary way, it makes everything have this kind of layer of depression going over it. And then from time to time, he decides that he's going to do like black metal screams or death metal growls just to make it even grimmer. I can't remember what my original point was, but that was it. Yeah, there's one track that I'm not so hot on, but I love the overall sound so much that it's just kind of like relatively, I don't like it as much as the rest. That was all.
Dipping into those sounds and almost new wave, but more on the goth side. I think the track Mask, it opens up with this cool tom beat, and it is almost 80s sounding, and it eventually goes on, and it, in a weird way, it does sound like the love child of Big Black and Depeche Mode in a way.
That the drums on that intro, there was, I mean, because what track is that? It's like a pretty good ways into it.
Yeah, it's the track 8 track.
Track 8. It's so groovy, it's almost jarring because it does sound 80s, and there's like, man, the diversity in types of rhythms and beats and little moments where like you're really conditioned to expect just brutality and punishing and pain throughout the whole thing, and then it'll just throw in this little thing like what the hell is it on Tape, where at like 2 minutes 15 it comes in, it's like this funky guitar, it's really depraved and sadistic funk, but it's funky.
Yeah, for that I know exactly what part you're talking about. I thought of like off note lounge music, which is kind of appropriate when I know it's not the same track, but if you're kind of invoking Beefheart with Frownland, doing like these off-note jazz or funk things in lieu of Beefheart feels appropriate.
It's like, and Tom, you brought up the way they do their bass and drums. You're I would say, if I'm just gonna throw out a claim, you have like the most extreme heavy music background compared to me and Alex. Like we have some extreme stuff, but you have like the extreme of the extreme. What could you compare this style of rhythm section to?
Well, this is maybe not the most extreme of extreme, but we haven't brought them up yet. You know that there is a band that's a big influence on them, which is maybe like, it is kind of like a bit of a guilty pleasure, but I feel like Chat Pile is kind of the realization of this guilty pleasure into a way that no longer you have to be guilty about. You know that they're big fans of early Korn.
I knew it. I fucking knew it. Dude, Alex, tell me it's not fucking, where the hell is it? Where the hell is it? I wrote it down several goddamn times because of how much it struck me, both camcorder and Tape, but camcorder is the one where I was like, oh, this is just if Korn was amazing. No, funny man was if Korn was fucking amazing.
Yep. Funny man. And it happens again later. I almost debated if I should invoke Korn's good name.
I'm glad we all knew it. We all fucking knew it.
We all know it.
No one else has the courage to speak up. God damn it.
We know a kernel of corn when we hear it.
God damn it. early Korn fucking rules. I don't give a shit if you think we're morons for saying that. The first two albums, I go to bat for the first two Korn albums.
Yeah.
So I think when I interviewed them, I was trying to think about all the different aspects of what I heard. And I think they have actually spoken before about the fact that they're really into Korn. I think if I remember right, it's the drummer who's the biggest fan, but all of them are quite into that early Korn. And I think that kind of sits as a layer over all of the rest of the music. But yeah, like going back to what I said about it not being a guilty pleasure anymore, I feel like with Korn, it gets quite repetitive. And once you've sort of like got past the sort of like initial representation of what the sort of personal horror is of it, it's all kind of like going through the same thing over and over again. But Chat Pile take that really gloomy, horrible, dark, down-tuned atmosphere and they run with it in lots of different places. A couple of things that I heard in them, which I brought up with them. I can't remember if they really said they were like totally references, but they said they were happy with it. I mentioned Godflesh, and I mentioned like Cop and Young God era Swans. And the other thing they brought up, which again, I think they might have talked about before, was Big Black. So I think a lot of the time, like Big Black and Korn, you can hear in the tracks. And in fact, in Mask, one of the things I wrote down in the final riffing at 350, I said it's very Korn, but it's been earned. Like... If you remember, I bet you've both seen it. You know, there's that. Oh damn! They made a whole series of it. It was a Heavy Metal, a Headbanger's Journey.
Oh yeah, this is like a decade or so ago, right?
Yeah,
the Canadian guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've forgotten his name now, but he did a whole series on it, and so it was like all different genres, and they had a new metal episode. And I think it was in this where they had Henry Rollins, and Henry Rollins was saying the thing about new metal, which I can understand why people like, is that they'll be like doing this, and then they break in. He's like, I completely understand why people get into that. So I think Chat Pile, the reason why I said that it's very Korn, but it's been earned at the end of it, because with Chat Pile, it's not like the rest of the track is just kind of dressing so they can get back to the payoff. They do all kinds of interesting things in the verses and like, you know, the jangly guitars or whatever else. And then so like when the drops come in, it's not like everything's just been waiting for this, just like a little extra bonus that you get. And they do have that dotted around the album. Yeah. It makes you want to flip tables and, you know.
It's an album that simultaneously beats you into submission while also pumping you up. Like fuck, like I can't help but move to this album. Like this, I find myself instinctually cranking the volume like with every other song, like without even thinking about it. Like no, this just fuels. It's like fuel.
I agree. At one point, at the end of Funny Man, I was like, I think if I saw this band live, I would simply just die. I'm going to see Knocked Loose for the first time. Time of recording, I'll probably have already seen them. So if I can make it through Knocked Loose, okay. Whenever they come back to LA, I need to get on this.
I would. This is the type of band that I absolutely. This is because I don't often like pull myself. It's not easy for me to go to shows anymore. I don't live very close, but there's exceptions where like. Yeah, I'll go fucking 2 hours away for this. Is one of those bands because you said, Tom, Cop and Young God era Swans, and I on our many Swans episodes on the first part of the Swans episodes, I mentioned how much I didn't like the drum sound on Cop because it felt like too small. Like the snare, I think in particular, was very small. But there's things about it that I do really like that make me feel things. Like in particular, the tom sound on the Swans records. There's a very dungeony aspect to the type of reverb in the way, just the way it's pulled off. I feel similarly about the way the toms are mixed on this album, because I thought God's Country was amazingly produced. I thought it's the way the crunch of the bottom end on that album I thought was astounding, and I thought I want to hear that sound on every album. This one, I don't think it sounds as good, but it has more character to it. It's a lot more It's a little bit more lo-fi. There's a lot more. It sounds more like it has a burlap sack over its head. The production of this album, and the drums in particular felt way more sinister to me than before.
I think given the context of the album and what they're trying to push across, those aspects that Mike described are just perfect for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it's interesting that Mike brings up the differences in sound, because I'm not sure if you've both read it in the press release, but this was produced by Ben Greenberg of Uniform, and I didn't really know Uniform very well until they released their latest record a few weeks ago or a month or two ago, which is called American Standard. And I was reading the press release for that, and it was saying that they were a hardcore band. And I started listening to this album like, whoa, this is like sludge. This is like some kind of like grim neurosis, apocalyptic, screamed nightmare world. So I definitely checked that out. But when I was talking to them, they said that they were like, I think they said they were like a little bit apprehensive because this is the first time that they were farming something out for someone else to produce after they'd recorded it. Everything else that they've done has been entirely done by themselves. So it's kind of interesting, like the differences that come across in the sound that, like you said, this sounds more lo-fi, but I think actually the production values are now higher. But yeah, I think like they sound very powerful before and they sound very powerful now, but there is something that's changed in the sound.
I definitely need to check out Uniform because you're the second person to talk about them. My buddy Robbie said like they're probably right up my bag, and hearing you describe them sounds amazing. So I'm really interested what that band sounds like.
Holy crap. Yeah, I've heard that name thrown on a few times. And in the album that you cited, I recognize that name. Very interesting. I had no idea they produced themselves. They're good at it. I mean, really, I'm so jealous that they know how to do that. I mean, that's so cool. Yeah.
By the way, this is like going off on a slight tangent. Do you know that they covered Roots Bloody Roots by Sepultura? Have you heard their version of that?
I haven't heard their version, but I did know that they covered it. Give me a little teaser. What do you think?
It's good.
All right.
Yeah, it sounds like Roots Bloody Roots played by Chat Pile.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I've actually, I really neglected. I know it's like a beloved album. I don't remember any of it except for maybe 2 tracks because I was big into like the early Sepultura stuff, the thrash stuff. I feel like in my age now, I need some roots back in my life.
The Roots from Philadelphia, though.
Indeed, yeah. Just bring Questlove back in Sepultura, for the love of God.
Just while we were talking about Swans before, there is one particular track that really reminds me of one specific Swans track. So at the beginning of Funny Man, the first thing it makes me think of is the boom, 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 of raping a slave. Oh. It's just that they have a more busy drum line going over the top of it because it's boom, da 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 dum, da 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 dum. But I very much get raping a slave out of that.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I know on that Swans episode I gave that whole Young God EP worse, but I mean it is probably like one of their most disturbing records, and the fact that like this can remind us of that without feeling like, oh, they're just clearly inspired by this. They're going for this. It has its own feel to it. It has its own. Yeah. That's what I feel about all these songs. Like, there's so much little personality in every song that does something a little bit different, and a lot of that even comes down to the vocals. You're saying that Reagan is like very hopeless sounding, which he absolutely is, but there's something so natural about it. Like you feel like when a vocalist, when you're hearing certain vocalists sing and you feel like that is who that guy is, it's kind of a little bit of abstract concept that I'm trying to relay right now, but there's something really believable that, I mean, I'm tired of referencing Swans all the time, but it's a good jumping off point where like you believe that this guy is saying, you believe he means what he's saying here. That's how I feel about this dude. And there's like moments where he's singing on it, like actually singing. There's moments where the death metal growls are so infrequent. So when they come out, they're like, whoa, goddamn. It's not just a dude mumbling around. And so I'm ranting a little bit, but on Frownland, I got hints of Daughters on this one, and including vocally, And my problem with Daughters, even though I like the band, is that the singer is just like, he likes David Yao. He clearly likes David Yao. There's a lot of like David Yao babies where like you could tell they're mumbling along. They're inspired by him a lot. Where I don't get any one particular singer from the way this guy is mumbling and ranting like a homeless guy. It is it's so unique. He does enough of so many different things that he sort of molded his own little style there.
Everything they do on this album is very good, obviously. But to me, the thing that kind of makes it stand out amongst a wave of other extreme music that we've heard this year is, I think, through this bringing their A game to the math rock riffs. Whenever it gets mathy, it just it really feels like earned and special whenever they get to those parts. What's an example where I'm just like,
the squiggly guitars in Funny Man?
We've talked about probably those, but like the New World has some like math riffs where I'm just like, this is so crazy. Not really math rock, but the closing track, No Way Out, I called them the Flight of the Bumblebee riffs, and they hit you with them real quick, and it repeats a few times, but not the same way like a main course of a song does or a catchy riff does, and it's this really, really interesting playing.
Man, talk a lot about the big, really powerful rhythm section. The guitar lines, God damn, they're so smart. The way, like on the New World around 115, it does this little syncopated part where guitar just kind of jumps in front with these really, really strange, ugly ass riffs, and bass kind of hangs back, and there's a lot of space. There's on No Way Out, like the Flight of the Bumblebee stuff, not to mention these crazy batshit chords that are. So we've heard lots of guitarists kind of use wrong notes to create a mood and effect and make things really unsettling and strange. There's something to be said about when he does it on these songs over the course of the album, where it doesn't feel like you figured out his trick. It doesn't feel like, oh, that's what they do. The guitarist does crazy little weird wrong note stuff. It's just it's like almost like engineered in a lab. Like, no, we're gonna do it at this particular moment so that you forgot about it the last time we did it, and it keeps doing that from beginning to end. Anyone?
No, I agree completely, and it's very busy, it's very violent, it's very chaotic. I think there are slower parts throughout the song or the album. I think the only song that really allows the listener to breathe, and only briefly, is Milk of Human Kindness. It is a, like, it stands out from the onslaught of brutality of the rest of the album.
Completely. That one, around that point in the album, because it's second to last track, that's when this album was like leaving me speechless, because with the amount, like, they didn't need to go this hard with this much diversity and this many little left turns and unexpected moments. But that one, the way it comes in is perfect. It's clean, but it's clean and sickly sounding, but strangely catchy. It's almost accessible. Like, it's that far into like, oh, I guess they can do this too. And then that one has like the most gentle sung vocals on the whole album, which they sound wonderful. He keeps them going when it gets dirtier and heavier, and it sounds great too. It's like a perfect palate cleanser. When I've said many times that some of I would say like almost the majority of my favorite albums ever, the one low point is the second to last song. And it's a smart place to put it, because you've already been sold by the rest of the album. And then the closer kind of wipes your memory of the one low point. That is one of the highest points. It's like, it's not satisfied with just being amazing. It has to be perfect.
It's funny. I was thinking about that, about your previous comment about like, not being too annoyed when the second to last track wasn't that good when I was listening to that song. Because I was thinking, yeah, it is quite low key and it's quite subtle, that track. But I do also think that the way that it's fit within the rest of the album, like it does really work very nicely, because Mask is one of these really intense, impactful songs on the album. And that like last bit that I mentioned, the big like sort of Korn payoff riff, and then you go into the Milk of Kindness, the Milk of Human Kindness, which is quite subtle in comparison, works really well, and then into No Way Out. The one track, because I mentioned it earlier, that I'm not so jazzed on is actually The New World. And as I say, it's not that I think it's bad, but I just found when it got to that one, after Frownland and Funny Man, which are two of my favorite tracks on the album, Camcorder and Tape were fine, but I felt like The New World was a little bit too similar to those two tracks. So I was starting to feel like, right, okay, we're getting a bit of a formula now. And then it goes into Mask and it does something different. So that's kind of like, for me, just in the middle of the album, because they are so varied and they do all these different things so well, that was the only point on the album where I started feeling like, this is like you're getting into a bit of a groove here, but then they went off in different directions again.
That's interesting to hear you say that, because I feel like Camcorder and Tape are two of the most goth rock influenced tracks, and I didn't really get too much goth stuff on The New World. And then this does kind of turn into this disturbing, dreamy track eventually, and it just like, I think around like 3:35, everyone's just banging away on their instruments, and it's just a assault on your eardrums the way they close that out, where like the previous two songs were, very much in their goth phase, and every song is violent, but that last chunk, I kind of see how that, because it does go on a while. What won me over with that track is the final chunk. It's one of the most punishing parts in the album, and the way it keeps kind of the particular rhythm that they're doing with that. It feels like someone's like punching in the face repeatedly. It feels like, yes, this is the part of the album where we want you to suffer, and that makes me happy. It fills me with like, yes, make me suffer. That sounds fucking creepy, but yeah, I love it.
So I've got a thought, because I've been pondering about this. It's a bit of a philosophical pondering I've been doing. So I'm curious to know how you two feel about this, particularly after doing this podcast for so long and subjecting yourself to so much music that, like, a lot of the time it's stuff you like, but it's kind of like you don't really have a choice. You're kind of like, right, we have to get through all this stuff. So I feel listening to this album, I'm trying to figure out why it is that it does make me feel like good, kind of like what Mike is saying. And I'm thinking, this is like existential horror, this album. And for some reason, existential horror is something that I can get into and I feel like relatively comfortable with it. But in contrast, like one of my best friends is a big fan of Nick Cave. And I am also a big fan of Nick Cave, and I have been for a long time. But recently I haven't really been listening to his stuff so much. And so my friend's a huge fan of the latest album. What is it called again? I
forget. I could find out in a few seconds. That
I remember it's got this white cover.
Wild God.
I thought there was God in the title. Have you both listened to that record
Not yet? I feel like foolish. I haven't yet.
Yeah, I feel like we should have done that for the pod, but
I lost track of time. I didn't know when it came out. Yeah,
you've got enough things going on. But yeah, that album, it's like there's a lot of, as you would imagine, because of all the stuff that Nick Cave's gone through in the past years, like it feels very personal to me. And not in the sense that like I've lost people in the circumstance he had, but like the kind of lyrical stuff that he's going into. I don't know. I have a difficulty dealing, it seems, with songs which are sort of about like domestic emotional situations, like it's not even particularly that album, but like, people talking about like breakups and feeling bad about breakups. And there's that kind of like dynamic I feel in the Nick Cave album, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, why is it that makes me feel uncomfortable? But when an album like this is so horrific, I'm like, yeah, this is okay. I don't mind this. Like, what is that all about?
If I'm going to guess, and I could be wrong because it's your own personal feelings, I would say it sounds like the Nick Cave thing is very personal to him, and I'm sure people who have felt lost can connect to it, but still those lyrics are about something he went through, where this Chat Pile album is talking about something happening in society and how something is rotten to its core. So it's painted in more broad strokes. That would be my guess.
My answer would be that there's something I would say inherently extremely cathartic about extreme brutality. Even if it's it's a bad kind of catharsis, there's still something like we've all been angry to the point where we're like screaming at the top of our lungs, punching something like as hard the immense release, that extreme catharsis. There's that, but if it's something like a breakup or something a little more interpersonal, I think we can remember what that feels like, and that feels bad. Whereas with something that's extreme, we can put it in the category of extreme release. So there's a great amount of relief with that. Whereas the other one, I think, is just pain. Like, it's just sad. And like, oh man, I just lost that person. That sucks. That just hurts.
What you both say makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Thank you for this therapy session.
It's fun. It's fun. We need it after listening to the music like this for so long.
I do personally think about that too. On paper, why would anyone subject themselves to extreme music or horror movies or depressing novels or anything like that? And it is at its core, I think it is a release. It taps into something very like primal, and maybe other people feel that way about personal songs or breakup. Maybe they need to be reminded of those feelings, but as long as it's making you feel something, that's the most important part. I think the three of us, we need that release, though.
Agreed.
Oh yeah. And it's not even like this album has all that catharsis in it, but it's also just dudes who are extremely talented and really smart at arranging music. Like just knowing when it feels so instinctual because you can listen to albums that are really good and you could tell that they spent a lot of time writing it and deciding where things might go and trying to make it as good as possible. This feels so instinctual. Like it's a very natural sounding album. That's what makes it more exciting to me, is that it's this engaging and this consistent, yet it feels like it just fell out of them. It doesn't feel like it feels like this is just the perfect set of dudes to that just came out of them. It feels so right.
Something I hadn't really realized before I talked to them as well is that they are a little bit older, like younger than me, but I think they're more like both of your ages. So they've already had kind of a fair bit of life experience before having this big breakthrough with the last album. And I think that there is a certain aspect of like their collective maturity that allows them to make this music that does come across in this very kind of natural way without sort of like second guessing themselves too much.
I think there is something like that. Me and a friend were listening to music we like, and he had Spotify on the TV, so there was pictures of bands, and this one guy who was hanging out with us, he's like, every band you guys listen to, they all look like dads, like Proto Martyr or Idols. And we're just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, we're this age, they're singing about things we like. And I would also argue I've always been into bands who kind of just dress like normal people, like a Fugazi or Black Flag. Like, these aren't extravagant looking bands. So yeah, I think there is something for why we like personally like a Chat Pile. And then going back to what Mike said, them being really good writers, to me, is this a bonus? And this is going to sound like a backhanded compliment to fucked up, but it's not. Like, could this be really stripped down, raw, simple, heavy music? And I think I would still love it. Like, just the way he wails, and like when he's singing Into the New World, a few times, like that repetitiveness, it really stays with me. Or lyrics like, back then I was a believer, a dreamer, I got nothing now. It's just like, yeah, it's really dark, violent, like Bruce Springsteen for people who like fucked up music.
That's a great quote for the album. It's Bruce Springsteen for people like fucked up music.
It is, because Bruce Springsteen was like working man, but there was still that like Americana to it. And this band's like, oh, there's no Americana left anymore. It's desolate wasteland now.
Yeah. And it's furthering that point a little bit. You hear this really punishing, brutal music and stuff, and also like the everyman, you know, I guess Springsteen style approach to the lyrics, but they're actually incredible, like artists. You wouldn't get that from like looking at them, or even like on a passing glance of an album like this, where it's just punishing. But one of the things that struck me about them is their album covers, the consistency in the format of their album covers. It's such a well done concept of you know, like a rectangle square within a flat color with a logo. Like it's a very consistent theme, and I fucking love that kind of shit. Where you're not going to mistake these album covers for anybody, even though sometimes the image is a little bit vague, like on Remove Your Skin Please, one of the early records. It's hard to tell what's in that image exactly, or in God's Country, where it's just sort of like a bunch of fucking telephone poles. It's hard. If that was the full cover, that would be kind of disorienting and strange and like forgettable. But because they formatted it in this specific way, it's a Chap album. Look at the way it's fucking formatted. It's brilliant. It's a really, really great artistic choice that also gives them some distinction amongst the billions of bands putting out great records now.
It's funny as well how they've chosen to have their logo in a death metal style.
Or yeah, like that black metal
spider. Oh yeah, but yeah, I guess it's like a black metal thing too. The spidery thing.
Yeah. You can't read it, but at a certain point, after seeing the album covers enough, you're gonna know that's them.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. As soon as I get a little bit extra money in my bank account, I will be pre-ordering this album ASAP. I haven't had a record player in a while because I moved and it was lost to the move. I had the records, but I need to get a new record. This is the album that's making me want to buy them again. Like, oh yeah, I guess I'm gonna buy this. I just have to have it. I not only do I want to support, but like this is one of those albums. This is this is one of those forever albums for me. Like that's how much it hit me.
But what are you going to do when you've got 13 records? How are you going to deal with your background?
I don't know. I'll have to just swap them around. I do swap them around. If astute viewers will notice, I swap them around occasionally. But
have you both watched the video for Mask yet?
No, I haven't.
No, I haven't.
Because there was something that Mike said earlier, I think, about there being a kind of combination between this beating you down and pumping you up. The video for Mask is like a perfect realization of that dichotomy, because it's some kind of cultish thing that's going on, and there's a guy, and there's he's seemingly sort of like being brought into this cult, and there's this older dude that's got no top on that's constantly like flexing his muscles, and him and this other couple of guys who seem to be part of the cult are making this dude do like push-ups and sit-ups, and there's all kinds of other weird stuff going on. I think he like has his teeth pulled out at one point, and he seems to have his wife or his lover or whatever else is with him, and she's sort of like the dynamic between the two of them changes over the course of the song. And then there's a guy in it who's got a big pig head and a chainsaw, and then it seems like he impregnates the guy's wife. You kind of got to see it for yourself, but it has very much that aspect of like, we're pumping you up, but we're also kind of destroying you at the same time. So it's pretty cool that you took that from it without having seen the video.
They really relay the message in the music well. I mean, they seem to have an MO. Also, before I forget, you brought up Alex Protomartyr for the song Shame. That song reminds me of a brutal extreme metal Protomartyr.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. This because the Protomartyr's last album, something about desert.
It's one of my favorite albums of last year. I listened to it countless times, and I also forgot the name of the album.
I honestly thought for a second the name of it was something about desert. I thought that's a fucking cool name for an album.
It's like Formal Growth in the Desert.
Formal Growth in the Desert. That's what it's called.
Oh, I nailed it first try without. Yeah, because that record also just had very like profound lyrics that stood out to me, and this invoked those same feelings where I would just hear him say things, even if they were very simple, straightforward, and it would stay with me.
Yeah, it leaves a mark. I wasn't able to make out all the lyrics on this song, but some of the stuff that I did make out. There's something also because I guess it's more of another thing that lends itself to the everyman, kind of real person experience kind of thing, where it's a very vernacular based lyrical style. It's not too I'm getting kind of lost in my thought, but it's a very vernacular sounding pattern of speaking. It's all relatable. It's all the way Porter is so painful, and it hits so hard because it's so relatable. Simple choice of words, like, oh, that's a guy saying that feels way more hurtful than someone wording it in a way that's kind of beautiful and poetic, even if they're maybe relaying the same type of message.
Yep, I get what you mean. I think, it kind of like feels in some ways like it's sort of like falling out of him out of desperation, rather than he sort of like constructed it in a way to come across as being poetic.
That's a beautiful way to put that, Tom.
Nice. I got my moment.
It's almost like he's a writer or something.
Do you two, did you note that the album's coming out on the Flenser? Do you recognize that record label?
No. What is that?
It looked familiar, but I've just been so swamped, as Mike will Mike's been arguably more swamped, but yeah, I know they've put out other cool shit we like. They've had to, right?
They do put out a lot of cool shit, and they are the label for Mamalik.
There we go.
We gotta cover that damn Mamalik album.
They have quite a lot of albums, by the way. I have a feeling now. I could be making this up. I have a feeling like maybe Ken Mode have been on the Flenser as well, but I might be making that part up. I'm not confident of that.
Well, so basically, the labels has good company.
Yeah, avant-garde hurt music.
Mm-hmm.
Agriculture's on there, Midwife's on there. Yeah, they're
good
doing
label.
They're doing good.
They're doing God's work.
Yeah, man. This album immediately, like most albums that hit me pretty hard, it immediately inspires me. Like, I want to make stuff. Oh god damn! It's just so encouraging to hear that you haven't heard. We'll never hear the end of great XYZ style of music. Like, we think we're so fucking not hubristic, but like we think we've heard it all. We think we know it all. We think we've heard the limits of something, but we're never right. And I think it's easy for us to forget that. Like, no, heavy music is still getting crazier and better, and you're not going to see where it's going. And this is like, these are the guys continuing the world of art. God damn it.
Another band that I wanted to bring up, and I don't know whether you two have listened to them much, Portrayal of Guilt. Does that mean something to you?
Vaguely, only.
Never heard of, no.
They are, for me, like, there's a whole load of music that's coming out these days that I feel like I'm sort of ignorant to, which I guess is always the way. It's just like there's so much music, it's hard to keep track of everything. But Portrayal of Guilt and Chat Pile did a split together a while ago, and I saw Portrayal of Guilt play in Berlin. It's a bit of like a running joke for myself now that I keep trying to interview the singer from that band. I think it's Matt King. And he keeps eluding me. I actually tried to interview him, and then I met him at the gig, and I was chatting to him a bit, and then I was just like, "Oh, by the way, like, I tried to interview you," and then he was telling me that, like, "Oh, I'll maybe like check it out," and then he didn't. But I actually went through this like whole existential pain thing where I thought, like, is it just that I'm too old? Like, no one younger wants to talk to me. I think I'm not cool enough. But
brother, I went back to school for my second stint because I haven't finished, and just surrounded by 20-year-olds. And I just feel that way every single time I'm there. But I will say, in my English class, they're all very nice, and they've complimented me, and I'm like, you guys are just buttering me up. You don't actually like me. So I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
I have a less cynical take about it, where I think the young people aren't as threatened by someone older, so they're more comfortable being honest with things that they do well.
Mm-hmm.
That could be something too.
Well, Portrayal of Guilt are a bit younger than Chat Pile, but they've toured together as well. And I know that the Chat Pile guys are big fans of Portrayal of Guilt. I think actually one of them was wearing a Portrayal of Guilt cap when I interviewed them. But some of this album does remind me of them as well. Like something that I think they do really well is they are, and this is kind of like getting back to the point that you were making there, Mike, about, like we often think like, oh, like we've heard everything. But I feel like with Chat Pile and with Portrayal of Guilt, and part of the reason why I like them both so much, and I kind of think of them together, is that I feel they are incorporating all of these different elements, and they're taking like indie rock and they're combining it with extreme music, and they're doing it in a way that I've never heard before. And it's like, there's like different trends have come and gone where I've sort of thought like, meh, whatever. Like, there are bits of new metal that I like, but ultimately it felt like it was quite limited. And there's a lot of punk stuff that I like, but then a lot of like modern punk things. And when I say modern, I mean like from the 90s onwards. Like, there's a lot of stuff in like kind of the Green Day, Rancid mold where I go like, maybe I like some of this, but it just feels like it gets very generic very easily. But with Chat Pile and with Portrayal of Guilt, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other bands out there in that sort of mold now, it feels like they are drawing together a lot of different elements in a way that's really exciting. And I hear this stuff and I'm like, yeah, it reminds me a lot of stuff, but it doesn't make me go, oh yeah, they're doing that or they're doing that. They are creating something new, and it's catchy, but it's also terrifying. And that's a winning combination from my point of view.
100%. It made me think, like, because for all of like, let's just say 50s through the 90s, maybe 80s, 50s through the 80s, it was sort of taking this kind of music, and then the innovations came from the uniqueness of each band doing it. So, Minor Threat would do punk the way a Black Flag wouldn't do punk, but they're both doing their version of punk. Whereas now, a lot of bands, they're blending genres, but they're still bringing that level of uniqueness. So, like, it's Chat Pile blending extreme metal and indie and whatever the fuck else in a way that's not the same as the way a Ken Mode does it. So you're getting basically a limitless amount of permutations of types of music now. We're still getting the same influences, but because it essentially like just doubles and triples and quadruples the amount of types of albums that we're going to get from this point on.
I guess it kind of comes down to authenticity as well. It's like, and I think Mike, you said something about that in terms of the vocals, like, I believe this band and I believe Portrayal of Guilt and I believe Ken Mode as well. It's like, yeah, they may be drawing from a lot of the same influences, but I believe their personal interpretation and the way that they present it.
Yeah, it's exciting. There are a lot of bands to keep track of now. There's a lot. It's pretty overwhelming, but there is so much good to be had. Oh my.
It's a shame, someone should do a podcast where they, try and cover all of these different bands week by week.
If only someone would do that. God damn it. And if only somebody would interview them too.
Who has the time? Who has the fucking time?
I teased at the very beginning, but yeah, this has been such a busy week, Alex. It's so funny. I'm not even mad because it makes me laugh so much. 2 weeks
thank you, and I can't apologize enough.
2 weeks in a row, he has forgotten to listen to the album that we're supposed to be recording the day that we get together to record. 2 weeks in a row, the same one album.
Alex, you don't want to piss off those fans.
Oh
no. But it's Mike that it's like when your parents they're not mad, they're just disappointed. That's the feeling I have.
It has been overwhelming. Alex is starting school again. I have literally been working. I mean, the last 2 days for my day job, which turned into a everything job. 32 hours straight, and it's
nightmarish.
it requires strict deadlines, and then things went wrong, and then I couldn't not finish it, otherwise I'd be bad. We're all pretty tired, and then we do this shit on top of that. Tom does a million fucking writing things. He does a ton of interviewing.
Well, I think I maybe said to you, Mike, but I don't know if I've said to Alex, my computer died on Monday night. I kept eking it out further and further. Like, things are like not working. Like the trackpad doesn't click anymore. Some other things going on, but like I just keep it going. I keep it going. And I just done an interview on Monday, and I was downloading the interview, and my computer started getting very flaky. So I thought, if I can just close everything down, it'll be okay, and I'll turn it off. And I turned it off, and it never came back again. And I had several interviews that I hadn't backed up.
Oh,
so
no.
I'm currently at the moment waiting for a retrieval, like a computer data retrieval company, to see if they can get a few interviews back for me. And the thing is, like, I'm going to have to pay a lot of money for it, and it's not really worth it. But at the same time, I'm going to take the hit if I can get them back, because even though I could say to these different people, I'm really sorry I lost the interview, I really don't want to do it. And it's my fault. So I feel like I should be punished for this, because I backed stuff up and then I just let it go for too long. But yeah, I've been interviewing a bunch of people. I was actually supposed to interview Buñuel. I was practicing how to say it. Buñuel.
Alex, what was I doing before we started recording?
Mike was talking about that before he's like, how the fuck do you say this band name?
I was trying to pronounce it. The whole time.
I went online to check it out. I think it's Buñuel. Something like that.
That's what I came down to also.
So there was a bit of a mix up. So I'm going to interview them later. But yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff that I've done and stuff that's coming up. So it's just kind of like a never ending process of interviews, which is pretty cool. Actually, I went to go see Melt Banana a couple of nights ago, and they were supported by a band who I think might be from Glasgow, who were called Moni Jitchel, like a play on words from Joni Mitchell. And actually the album cover, it's a shame I don't have it here, because I bought the vinyl and then I was cycling home, so I gave it to my friend to look after for me, and he hasn't given it back to me yet. But on the album cover, you can see it's in a living room, and they've got a picture of whatever the album is. It Kind of Blue, or is that the Joni Mitchell album, or is I mixing that up with Miles Davis?
I'm not.
They might have the same
something in blue anyway, and it's got her name on it, and they've doctored it so it just says Moni Jitchel along it. But anyway, they were kind of like a sort of weird noise rock duo, and I ended up chatting to the main guy, and I'm going to interview them. So that was kind of cool to like meet someone in the flesh, and then go like, "Would you like to do an interview?" Very nice,
very nice. But yeah, I mean, what else can be said about this record that we haven't already? It's you must hear it. You just must.
Yeah, this may be one of our longest reviews ever. I know there's 3 people instead of 2 people on this one, but
I do yap a lot.
Pretty glowing review from 3 individuals, like-minded individuals, but still.
Yeah. What did you think of the last album, Alex? Because was it like on the short list for you at your end of year?
I liked it. I think I may have been a bit overwhelmed by year-end shit. And it was one of those things where I wanted to go back and listen to, and I just neglected it. And obviously now I'm definitely going to prioritize that. Also, sometimes it takes me a little bit to like fully get some bands, like famously, like Ween. I was so overwhelmed by Ween, but now I just throw on a few of their albums for fun now.
Hell yeah.
Where at the time I was like, I really can't confidently say I like love this band, but now I can. So it may have been one of those things too, where like now that my brain is accustomed to their music and hearing this second album, it was just like, it clicked and I was like, fuck yeah.
Have you gone back to Typo Negative yet?
I actually have not, but I should. I was thinking about them the other day.
You should, as Mike suggested, you should listen to Suspended in Dusk.
I should, because one of my assignments was to write about a breakup song, and I was thinking about maybe I was like, I don't want to do anything generic. Like Typo Negative has to have like a weird one.
Unsuccessfully coping with the natural beauty of infidelity.
There. I've already made but in the future, if I need one, there we go.
The most unsentimental of breakup songs.
That probably would have been fun to write about.
So yeah, this comes out. If you're watching this today's drops in a few days on October 11th. If it's after that, just listen to the damn thing. Even if you're maybe not the biggest extreme metal head, it's not extreme metal. It's something completely different in you, and it is worth it. My God,
I've got a little like encapsulated description of what I think this album is. So this album is like if an indie rock band got kidnapped from a suburban house party. They got stuck in the boot. They got driven to a remote cabin in the woods. They got stuck down in the basement. They got tied to a chair. They got made to watch snuff movies. And then they escaped just by gnawing through the rope. They ran out onto the streets in soiled underwear, all bloodied. And then they got picked up by a car and they got taken home and they were traumatized. And that's what this album is.
Give it a listen, folks.
Perfect. I hope Tom's quote makes it on the sleeve of the album one day.
Along with, what was it you said about Bruce Springsteen?
Oh, yes. Like some fucked up, twisted, violent Bruce Springsteen. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Hell yeah. So that's right there. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and hanging out. Check out the album. You must. Thank you, Tom, for joining us this time. This is hopefully the first of many to come.
Thank you for having me.
You can follow me on all social media at PanderMonkey, Alex on Instagram at
Every Album Alex.
And Tom, plug all your stuff.
So you can get me, you can stalk me, you can follow me at Tom Osman Sounds. You can also go to my website, tomosmansounds.com. I am just about to release a collaborative album with a experimental noise avant-garde electronic music maker called Augurio Drama. And the album's going to be called Real Silence. And it's a combination of ambient noise and techno with me doing creepy spoken word over the top. And there is a track on it, as I think I've said to Mike before, where I'm trying to channel White House. But as I said to Mike, it's like White House, but milder by about 1,000 degrees. But yeah, I was trying to be scary. One of my friends who worked on it listened to it and he thought it was very funny. So you can look forward to that.
Many things to be had is what I hear. Yeah, you can also check out my EP. There's a link to all this stuff in the description. Leave some comments, talk about shit, tell us why we're stupid, or tell us why you love Chat Pile. Damn it. We already have people saying like, you gonna do Chat Pile? You gonna do Chat Pile? You damn goddamn right. What? Yeah, absolutely. Closing it out with a couple singles out.
I don't want to take Alex's role, but I think there's something that you neglected to mention.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Oh goodness. Oh. Patreon, baby. God.
Sorry, Alex.
Damn. God
all good.
Damn.
All good.
Patreon.com/everyalbumever. Please, for the love of God, don't forget like I just did. You get bonus episodes. You get to see your schedules in advance. You get to vote on polls to decide what we cover next. You get to join our Discord, be part of our community where Tom is very friendly and talks more than I forget to check it. Alex forgets to check it sometime. Tom is the man. Talk to Tom, goddammit.
Talk to Tom. It's not that I forget. I'm like, oh, this is overwhelming. And then there's like a million more messages and it just piles up. And I'm like, fuck, I should have addressed this earlier. So I'll pop in. But Tom, yeah, Tom's the man.
I feel like I'm like the friendly local child that's playing with the visiting kids. Alex is the parent, the benevolent parent that comes in from time to time. And I'm not sure what Mike is. Mike
left town and it started a new family back east.
Yeah. Dad went to get cigarettes and he never came back.
On the Patreon, I run the Patreon, so you can send me a message on the Patreon. I respond to all those. But yeah, you can suggest episodes like this one, like new albums that have come out this year. We covered new albums that came out this year. And if you're tier 2, if you're bigger than Jesus, then you can request a full ass discography for our bigger, longer numbered episodes. In addition to that, you can suggest any album from any discography ever, and we'll do Patreon bonus episodes on them. So there's plenty of fun to be had. Go check it out. Thank you. Now closing it out.
So there's one more thing I just want to say. I'm never going to let it end. The Patreon only episodes. Am I allowed to say what it is that you did recently?
Oh yeah.
The Diamond Head one. I listened to that when I was driving across the country. Enjoyed all of it. I just wanted to like minimize the pain that you felt, Mike, because even though the microphone sound changed all the way through, it didn't affect my enjoyment of the episode. So it was all right.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we just did an episode on Lightning to the Nations by Diamond Head, which is, I mean, it's been a favorite of mine for a long time. Alex is newer to it. If you like Metallica, you've probably heard every song on there already. I fucked up and I didn't record my mic for the first like 10 minutes and I was so angry, but I'm glad I didn't. Good episode. I mean, fascinating album. We dive into all like the craziness behind the release of it and how it was lost for a while and then it was reemerged. But yeah, it's fun stuff. Go to the Patreon. God damn it. Yeah. So closing it out.
I feel like we talked about Mask a lot. To me, that's what I think we got to do.
Tom?
I mean, I have absolutely no complaints with that.
Hell yeah. So this is Mask. Thank you so much for listening and watching. See ya.